Hi everybody. I thought I would do a little spiel on the difference between call sign and routing, and actually tell you what that is, versus using smart groups or Starnets, which are also a form of call sign or a form of routing. I don't want to say call sign routing. It's group routing is what it really is. It lets multiple people participate in um, the conversation via a group, and that's what smart groups are and Starnets. Smart groups are typically found over on the QuadNet side of IRCDDB versus Starnets, which can be found on the QuadNet side, but also predominantly, I think, on the Group 1, Group 2 IRCDDB server side. Uh, anyways, call sign routing. What is call sign routing? Well, first, if you come from the analog world, your analog repeaters dictated where your transmissions went. If the repeater was linked into a system, the repeater took care of that and sent all transmissions through that link. In the D-Star world, your radio controls where your transmissions go. Well, how do they do that? You need to be familiar with D-Star and how to program your radio, first of all, to understand this, I believe. But there are three major fields used to route traffic from your radio to the rest of the world. They are the your call field, or UR call field, RPT1, or the from field. The your call field is also known as the to field. And then there's RPT2, which is where I guess I'll say it's the via field. How do I get from the from to someplace outside of my local repeater? The from field is typically the repeater that you are going to talk on. Either whatever repeater it is and which module, A, B, or C. The RPT2, say that 10 times fast. The RPT2 field is where you tell the radio to send out through the gateway. My feelings are that you should always program the RPT2 field with the gateway information, whether it has a gateway or not, because you may or may not know if it does. So there's no harm done if you program that field. So as an example, let's say we're on a W1 AW, and you want to go out the gateway. So your RPT1 or the from field would say W1AW with a C in the 8th position, and your RPT2 field would say W1AW with a G in the 8th position. And typically the your call field or the to field would say CQ, 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 basically a general call. That's a standard setup. Now, if you wanted to direct your transmission to me directly, you would change the your call field or the to field to my call sign. You put W1FJM in that field. Change nothing else and transmit. And your radio would tell the network, hey, go find where W1FJM last transmitted. Doesn't mean I'm going to be there, but where did the network last hear me transmit? And it would route the call to that repeater or gateway or hotspot, whatever I was on last. And I would need to know that you were doing that in order to be able to respond to you. So when you do something like that, it is highly recommended that you make a statement as you're transmitting saying who you're calling and that it's via call sign routing. That lets the receiving party and any other people on that repeater know your call sign routing so that they can take the appropriate action to respond to you, because it's not automatic, it's not a link. They would need to call sign route back to you. Okay? Pretty simple, and it works. It has its downside and its upside. The upside is you can find the person you're looking for wherever they were last. You don't need to know where they were. The downside is that if there's a conversation going on that repeater and you transmit in there while they're talking, and if you happen to get in between two transmissions, you're going to come in not knowing they're there because you can't hear them, and they're going to go, "What the heck's going on here?" So that's why you say that you're call sign routing. Then they will understand and they won't get annoyed. And I would do that a couple of times while you're keyed down. Make that statement so that it gives the people on the other end time to hit some buttons on their radio to get back to you. Now, what's the smart group stuff? Well, over on the QuadNet, they have set up smart groups that are very similar to a Starnet, both of which are how do I want to describe this? A group name. And what you do is when you go to one of those, you're signing in on the first transmission, and then you need to sign out on the last transmission, which I'll tell you about. Anyways, so what it lets you do is lets a bunch of people talk to each other without tying up a reflector, and everybody can hear what everybody else is saying and converse through it. It routes it through the group is basically what it's doing. So as an example, there's a group called D*1. If you want to go and talk to people out there or listen to it, you don't even have to talk. If you want to listen to see who's out there talking, what you do is the only field you need to change again is the "you're called" or the "to" field, and you would punch in D*1 with some designator in the 8th position. Now, you can find that information out on the QuadNet dashboard page or web page, and I will post that link at the bottom in the comments section. And you can see which Starnets and which QuadNet groups are out there. It will show you what the login is, and it will show you what the sign-off is. It's not really a login because you're not logging. You're just signing into it, saying you're becoming a member of that group. So it's a sign-in and a sign-off. And for as long as you are signed into that group, any traffic to that group will follow you wherever you converse. So, as an example, let's say that you were on a repeater in Vernon, Connecticut. That happens to be one that I use at times. You signed into the group and you went onto that repeater and you were having a conversation, not through the group, but just a regular CQ conversation, and somebody came up on D*1, you would hear them as well as anybody else on that repeater, because the traffic coming through that group would be looking for you, because it knows where you are, and route the traffic over to you. And then if you moved to a repeater in Meriden, Connecticut, different repeater, and started talking over there with some people, any traffic coming from that smart group would follow you over to that repeater. So there is an issue that you have to be aware of, and that is if you never sign off of that smart group, and your last place you transmitted was on, one of the local repeaters using CQ, and some people started talking on the smart group after you left, that traffic would continue to go to that repeater where you last transmitted. And I have another video talking about that out here. So you want to make sure you sign off, because most of the smart groups have a very long period of time before you get automatically signed off. That web page that I'm going to put the link on shows you as well the duration of the sign off. Most of them are 5 hours. Some of them are 10 hours for whatever reason. So a Starnet does the same exact thing as a smart group. The only difference with a Starnet and between a SmartNet and a smart group and a Starnet is when you're out mobile. There are issues with cellular, and you can't use a Starnet when you're out mobile because the ports get bounced around. But you can use a smart group, because the folks that did the smart groups added some code into their end of things that accommodate that cellular issue. So the smart group is the place to go. Anyways, Callsign routing is one-to-one routing. Smart group routing is a group conversation. It can be one-to-one if there's only 2 people talking, but anybody signed into that group is going to hear that conversation. Hopefully that clears up all of that. Now, there is one additional type of routing, and that's called source routing. That's where you send your transmission to a repeater, not looking for anybody in particular, just a general call to another repeater that you can't reach via RF. And the way you do that is you change the your call, or the to field, to the repeater call sign that you want to go to and its module with a slash in front of it. So if you want to route over to AA1HDC in Vernon, Connecticut, you would put slash AA1HD with the C in the 8th character, and your transmission would get routed to that repeater. And then again, you would want to say you were call sign routing when you were doing that, so anybody on that repeater could reply, because again, you cannot hear them. It's just like call sign routing. So there you go. Hopefully that clears up what these routing things are. I know after talking to a few people today, there was some confusion as to what it was, how it worked. Hopefully that's a fairly simple explanation. And again, anybody that wants to contact me at W1FJM at W1FJM.com to further discuss this, feel free. 7